Okay, we'll start then the presentation on Artisan. My name's Clive Davies, on the screen here, and I'm from Pictorex in the UK, and we develop and distribute Artisan, the rendering product. So Artisan for IntelliCAD, we call it the add-on rendering for IntelliCAD. We've got a long experience of working with IntelliCAD. Originally, I'm from Lightwork Design, and we created the very first IntelliCAD render. I don't think we ever had a name for it at the time. I think it was called like Render DLL or something, and it was part of the original IntelliCAD. Over the years, we had many customers using our toolkit product, and we eventually produced this end-user product, Artisan, which I'll show you now. So it's the add-on. I underlined the, but I'm not sure. I don't think there are other add-on rendering products. Of course, you can use many rendering products to create images, but IntelliCAD is the only one that we know that's add-on. So we created by Pictorex. We're in the UK, in Sheffield in the UK, in the north of the UK. And it was integrated, and I'm going to be talking a little bit about this integration. It was integrated with IntelliCAD by the ITC development team. Okay, so we're not a standalone product. We're not something that you can buy and import various files and produce pretty pictures. We're actually integrated with CAD systems. And the integration, in this case, was produced by the ITC development team. What we think, I mean, I've ticked all of these, we think it's the perfect solution for AEC, product and mechanical design. So these are some sample images. I won't bore you with lots of sample images, but all of these images were created with Artisan. They're not sort of images that we've just created with a rendering product and we say that's the sort of thing you can create. These are created with Artisan. We have a range of users creating quite different images. So we have mechanical users creating images of mechanical parts, sometimes for packaging, sometimes to show to their customers, sometimes just to show a nicer image. We've got a high concentration on architecture and interior design, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. It's something that we're developing more and more with the IntelliCAD version. And finally, we don't have any automotive users, but this is I think it's a DWG file that someone's loaded, created materials, and created an image of it. So it's capable of creating high-quality images. Photorealistic is a word that's thrown around a little. I don't think, this one's not bad at the distance you are. It could be a photograph. I think if you inspect closely, you know it's not a photograph. So there are hundreds of things I could talk about in terms of the features and benefits, but I just wanted to focus, seeing as it's just after lunch, I just wanted to focus on a few things which I think will catch your attention. The first is the close integration with IntelliCAD, and I'll demonstrate this in a moment. We don't open a DWG file that may have been created by Autodesk or BricsCAD or anyone. We are actually integrated with IntelliCAD, so the button, as many of you will have seen, is actually on the toolbar. The file doesn't need to be saved because it loads the file directly from memory. It loads the model directly from memory. It's easy to use. I've been involved with this type of thing for many, many years. And there's many rendering products you can buy. We think Artisan is as easy as it can be to produce a rendered image. Okay, it's designed for people who don't want to be experts at rendering. They just want to create an image. Their modelers or engineers want to create a rendered image of their part. They don't necessarily want to give it to the rendering guy. They want to do it themselves. So that's what Artisan's all about. We make it easy with lots of drag and drop materials, backgrounds and lighting schemes. There are dialogues in the system, but most of it is in a drag and drop user interface, which you'll see as I demonstrate. We've translated the interface into 10 languages. It's a very open system. All of the files it creates, the files it reads, the connection with IntelliCAD, the files that are saved, are open files. They're XML files. You can do anything you want with them. The interface, similarly, is an XML set of files. If you want it creating another language, you can actually create it yourself or ask us to, and we'll do it. We've got 10 languages, and I'll show them. And then a distribution network. we've come up with a scheme which we think is very clear, very clean with the ITC for distributing Artisan to the IntelliCAD customers. So the close integration then, it's a plugin. There's no file open command in Artisan for any customers. It's a plugin, so this is IntelliCAD. It's actually a ProjectCAD screenshot here. There's a menu which says Open Render, and lo and behold, Artisan appears with the model. So this movement from there to there is a click. I'm not opening a file, rendering it, saving the file, and so on. I'm actually working on the model. Now, the real power of this is as the model develops, obviously, because as this model changes, I may have created 10 images. I don't want to have to create them all again based on the new model. It's still connected to that same version of the model, to the new version of the model. And I put these images in. I had them from Vitor a long time ago, actually, but it was an image I always liked. This is running in CMS IntelliCAD. So here's the IntelliCAD view, and then the Artisan render, which is extremely, I think Vitor would tell you, is extremely simple to create because we're basically applying materials. We're dragging and dropping metals onto here, brushed metals and shiny metals, and producing an image. Probably, I'm not sure the length of time that took to render, but in terms of creating the scheme, it would take seconds. It's not a standalone application. I've said that a few times, and it's worth stressing. What we do is we connect to CAD systems. We've connected to many of them. You'll know some of these names, some of you, and others you won't know. But this is the full range of systems that we currently connect to. IntelliCAD's coming up in a moment in that gap there. So you'll know the Zeds, Baby, G-StarCAD, BricsCAD, Compass and Renga from Ascon in Russia. Multicad is a small system in Norway that wanted to create a connection, and Aries from Greybert in Germany. Now, each of these connects in exactly the same way. They're all run as a plugin inside these systems. And this arrow, which you may not see from a distance, but this very thin line is the bridge, is the connector. Sometimes we've created this line, and sometimes the customer themselves has created it. So Key Creator from Kubertech in the US, they created this line. When it gets to Artisan, it's exactly the same. It's our product. So everything you see when I do a demonstration, I could be running in any of those CAD systems. So here's the IntelliCAD world opening up for us. I think IntelliCAD is really interesting for us, not only because you've got many members of the ITC. We currently have CMS and ProjectCAD as part of the group using and supplying in Artisan to their customers, but because you're a genuine platform product. And that's been stressed a few times, and it's great to hear. I mean, a few of these other people started off as platform products, but they all changed. They're not quite as bad as Autodesk. The Autodesk examples that I've seen, but they're going that way, I think. They want to control things. We like to be in this world. We're effectively a platform product. We don't sell to end users. We have no end users on our list. We only supply to CAD companies. The supply is interesting. I think the support is interesting. I mean, the support for us, it's interesting when you analyze our support load. It almost always tends to be this arrow. It doesn't load. It hasn't installed correctly. Once you've got it on your machine and it works and you've done the licensing thing, Artisan, it just speaks for itself. You just drag and drop and it produces rendered images. There are some complicated things, but I'll talk about those in a second. So it's easy to use. Many of you may have used rendering systems in the past. It's not easy. It's not easy creating a rendered image of something. It's not too bad if it's a mechanical part and you're saying, I want it to be wood, rubber, metal, plastic. If you're doing interior scenes or architectural scenes, it can be extremely difficult to position lights, to get light to bounce around a scene, to produce an image. Even a room like this with very large windows, it's difficult to get the shadowing correct. What we've tried to do is make that as easy as possible. So this is the move from IntelliCAD, from ProjectCAD into, I'll demonstrate this model in a moment. This is a an image of, it's a building called the Barcelona Pavilion, which some of you will know. So this image can be produced in a matter of minutes with very little, well, training doesn't exist. We don't really have training as such. You know, we have some YouTube examples. We have a very simple help file that just tells you things, but you know, it's basically very obvious what you need to do. Now these words, I left these on, I took them off the slide originally. Global illumination, ray tracing, procedural materials, they're all fancy rendering terms, which in some rendering systems, I think rendering systems I've been involved in the past, you need to know what this means. You need to know what global illumination means. You need to know what ray tracing means. Within Artisan, you don't need to know these. It kind of does it for you. So we drag and drop materials, and I'll demonstrate this, but just show you some of the menus. So this is a cut-off of the screen. This is a screenshot showing some of the menus. We have a whole set of materials which we give to people. It isn't enough. And everyone we sell to, or through our suppliers, they say, we need some more materials. We're in Mexico, can you provide some paving slabs, which a Mexican producer creates? Well, we can't do that. We could do the Mexican thing, but we can't do the Russian thing, or the Taiwanese thing, or the Argentinian thing. So what we've done is made this very open. You can create these materials very easily. You can create them, and you can create a little archive and distribute it with the system, or the user can create them. If the user has some specific materials that they want to create, they're very easy to create. Most of them are created with, I'll say JPEGs, but it could be any image. Or we have procedural materials also that you can create. Similarly with backgrounds, over here on the right-hand side, we have a set of backgrounds we supply, some forests, some tables. It can't possibly be enough, obviously. We supply, I don't know how many, maybe 50 or 60 of them. You can create as many as you want to. So you can take images of this room and immediately create an archive and place objects on that scene. We don't yet have people creating these and distributing them in any large number, but I don't think it's only a kind of next step, really. Language translations. So we have these: German, Italian, French, Spanish, European languages, Russian, Polish, Japanese, Korean, Chinese and Portuguese at the end of the list there. We've created these on demand almost. We were English to start with. We just created these as people wanted them. We use an agency in the UK has done these, but I think the Italian one was created by, not ProCAD, but another customer who wanted an Italian version. I don't think, they're created by native speakers by this agency, but I think some of them need a little polishing in places. Some people have said, you know, your Polish one isn't quite right. Because some of the words in a rendering system, obviously they're a little bit odd for a translator to translate. They don't quite know what it should be. But as I said, they're all in XML, and you can create them. Anybody can create them. Or edit them, indeed. If you want to see the Polish one and you think this is just crazy, that word is wrong, you can change it. The distribution method then, if I won't go back to the slide, but the slide with all the customers on, it's different for everyone. Everyone has a different system for doing this. So BricsCAD has one way of doing it, G-StarCAD has another, Kubertech has another. They all want to do it in a different way. We've come up with a very clear and clean version with IntelliCAD, which works well. And it's packaged with a standard release. I'm not quite sure on the actual mechanics of this, which we can ask and talk about, but you've got access to it. You can use it, users can use it, and then by signing a simple agreement, you can actually distribute it. So the unique deal, as you may know this already, it's $5,000 per annum fee, and 10% of that is paid to the ITC for doing the work. There's no further royalties to pay. You can sell it or distribute it however you want to your customers. I think everyone at the moment, you distribute it in a pro version, I think, do you, Damiano? I can't. There's a version without it and a version with it.
No,
it's always.
It's packaged all with all.
It's always in. Okay, so it's always in, and it's cleaner. I think some of our customers, again back to the slide where the customers are, they try to sell it as an additional version. So you've bought the CAD system, you don't need to buy the rendering now, and then they go back to the customer and try to sell them rendering. I think that's a difficult job. I think people need, you know, unless they're really in the rendering business, to be convinced that you actually want this rendering product is difficult. And when it's packaged with a system, it's perfect for us. It does render with a trial mark. This is in your version also? Oh, sorry. Do you have this? I put the image on, but I wasn't sure. Yes. Okay, so you can render with a watermark. And we do this with all of our suppliers. They can give this version away. It has everything in it. It has all the materials. There's no limit at all. It doesn't run out in time. All it does is produce a watermark on the image. When I say all it does, most people complain about that, of course. Can we have it without the watermark version and some other mechanism? No, we don't do that. We just say, no, this is the one. We can't have a timed version we don't really want to get into complex licensing systems on that. Okay, so that's just a few slides. And any questions you've got, I'll be pleased to answer them on that. But I'm just going to demonstrate this building for you. The Barcelona Pavilion. It's a pavilion that was built in Barcelona for their kind of exhibition in the 30s, I think, a long time ago. This is a photograph of the building, and that's an artisan image of the building. Okay, so they're not identical. In fact, the model isn't quite the same. I think originally the model was, I can't think, it was a DWG model from somewhere which we just use as a rendering example. So let me load the model, and I'll show you it in action. So I'm just loading this in, I've just used a version of ProCAD just to open this. So here's the model here. I'm appalling at using, I can do that in CAD systems. I can't really do much else in terms of creating the model, but you can see the model is there. And if I hit the open render button, what's happening now is, I haven't got a file open command in here. It's loading the model. ProCAD is still, I haven't exited ProCAD, it's still running. Obviously, it's a plugin. And now I have the model in Artisan. Okay, so it's pretty similar for a model this size, and some of the big models I've seen, the car model was particularly impressive, I think you showed earlier on. I'll have to get that one and we'll render that. But this is a very simple model just to show you the principles. Okay, first of all, we have an OpenGL view of it, which has a nice drop shadow on, so it looks kind of real. It has some other nice OpenGL features. It kind of has some shadowing you can see around the bench thing. It just does that for you just to make it look a little bit better. And we can orbit it. We can walk around it. We can get a bit closer. So I can move this around and I can walk and have a look inside it. So this is the building. And then I have a range of materials which I can add to this. And I'll show you some of the standard materials first of all. Let's get a little bit closer, just so you can see these working. I'm just using the button there just to drag, and the mouse button's just to drag the thing on the screen. So I'll just drag one of these materials. We can't do many things in this. That's why it's kind of easy to use. We can add materials. If you can see this from a distance, probably not because it's a little small. We can change some lighting, and we can change the backgrounds. That's all we can do, effectively. When I'm in the Materials button, these shows me various material palettes, and if I just scroll through them, you can see I've got various things. I've got some fences and concretes, colors, and I've got a whole stack of these that I can scroll down. So if I go to the bricks, I want to see this with the bricks on. I simply drag the bricks and drop it on. Okay, so I'm dragging the thing across and dropping it onto the model. Let's put the bricks back on. I can carry on moving it now, of course. I can now look at this. It's a standard OpenGL view. It's not particularly different. And what I can do is I can carry on dropping materials on here, or I can use some materials which I've actually saved in my star menu over on the right-hand side. If you can see the menu, I've actually saved some materials for this model, which are some samples of the materials of the model itself. So I can drop some marble onto here. Let's go around, because there's a rather nice piece of wall over here. Let's walk around the front, I think. Get around there. Walk through that wall. Let's come around to here. So I've got this green marble, if you know the building. These are glass windows, so I've got some glass, which isn't simply transparent. It has a reflection when we come to render it later on. Perhaps if it's might be a little bit dark at the back. If you want to see it kind of on the screen later on, you can come and have a quick look over here. These columns are steel, so I've got some steel. Just drag onto there. Just check my lighting's okay, it's okay. And anytime I want to, I can render this. When I press this render button here, okay, it's rendering as best it can. It doesn't really know a lot at the moment. It's not much different from the OpenGL. And when I move, I can carry on moving it. So that's the OpenGL, and that's the rendered view. You know, not much different. It's not that much different because I haven't got any lighting yet. So let me put some lighting on. So if I click to the lighting button here on the top, I now get a whole set of lighting schemes. Exterior schemes and interior schemes. Now these are natural lighting schemes. They're assuming there are no lamps in the scheme. It's just saying, what will this image be like this room in natural daylight? That's all I want to see. So I'll have a look at a sunny scheme. What's happened when I do that is it's set up a whole load of funny parameters. Okay, now and I think some of the systems I've worked with in the past, we would have exposed all those parameters. You decide what you want these numbers to be. They're impossible to work out what the numbers need to be. So what we've done is we've made an educated guess on what we think the numbers should be in those situations. And in actual fact, you can change some of them by a small amount, but you can't really change them because, you know, how bright do you want the sun to be? It's the sun. So kind of, you know, we've decided what the number is. If I zoom away from this, you can see what's happened is it's actually created a little sort of hemisphere of, and it's placed the model in that scheme. This isn't meant to be a final image that I'm going to produce. This is just a lighting scheme which will light that model. Okay? I've chosen it for you. We've decided that daylight sunny means that scheme. And if I get closer to this, I can now render this, and it's looking a little bit more real because it's now got some sun and it's got some daylight. Okay, let's get a little bit closer. Okay, ignore the background for a moment. Okay, and if I render that, it's saying, okay, that's probably what it looks like on a sunny day. Again, maybe a little bright on the screen, but it looks okay. If the background's annoying me, I can turn it off. I can say, I just want to see it with no background, just so I can get this lighting sorted out. Let me render it again. And it's still rendering it as a sunny day, but you're not getting that lighting scheme showing on the screen. I've got some water effects. Let's put some gravel in the pond first of all. Just hide that geometry for a second, and I think I've got some gravel over here. There. So I put some gravel in there, and let's put some water on top. Put some water. I've got some water there. You can't see it yet, but when I render it, we can see a rendered effect of some water. Okay, it's not a perfect example of water, but it kind of gives you a watery effect. We've got some various different waters in there. Okay, so it's now looking quite nice. Let's get a nicer view. And I just manipulate my view until it's kind of the view I want. Let's bring a nicer background in. I don't want a grey background, so I'll bring in some trees, something like this maybe. Okay, move that down and see. So I'm now just positioning this model against that background image. I'm not doing anything more than that. I'm kind of just eyeballing it in. Let's tip it down a bit, about there. And rendering. Okay, so I'm getting a kind of, this will do. I've got my client coming in a moment. He wants to look at his Barcelona pavilion I've just designed for him. And that's kind of what it's looking like. I've got something I can show him, or her. Let's create a snapshot of that. And create a snap, I've hit the camera button here, and it's created a snapshot, a little blurred, but you can see a sort of image of it. We call them snapshots, but they're more than just an image. They're everything I've done so far in the scene. So let me just go back and change the materials. Let's say, put some bricks on that wall. So the client doesn't know yet which materials they want. So I'm going to create a snapshot of that one, and I'm going to create a snapshot of, say, that one, and maybe some bricks on there. Okay, let's move it around a little, and a snapshot. Okay, so I'm creating snapshots down here, which I can show to the customer when they come in. So I can say, these are the schemes we've designed for you. It's this one, or this one, or this one. Okay, nice and simple. But these aren't just images. As I say, these are actually the model at that stage of design. So I can go back to any one of these and carry on. And even more so, I won't demonstrate it, but even more so, I can go into the model in IntelliCAD, change the model, and then see these snapshots again without doing any extra work. So it's designed to be very quick and easy to show someone. So I can get to that point. Let's say we're going to show him the brick one, and let's say we're going to have a slightly different, we're going to get the shadows in a slightly different place just to show them where the sun is. So we can move the sun around a little and create a rendered image. And here comes the rendered image. So this is now a sort of fairly accurate example. I'm not saying it's photorealistic, but it's an accurate example of what these materials would look like with the sun in that position. We have, as you saw, a sun movement, which is basically you put the sun where you want to. One of the things we're looking at doing now is actually say a time of day, and you know, I'm in Mexico, it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon, where will the sun be on this model? And we're doing that now. Okay, right, that's about it. That's what Artisan is. That's running inside IntelliCAD now. You can deliver to your customers by joining the special interest group and paying the annual fee. We're now working on more features in Artisan, and we're being pushed by our customers, ProCAD, CMS, and other customers are saying, we want these features. So now the ITC are doing the connection for us. We don't have to worry about the connection anymore. We don't have to worry about installers, because that's all handled in IntelliCAD. We can now focus on adding functionality to Artisan. The functionality we will add is lighting functionality more than any others at the moment. As I said, most things can be created by you. You can create materials, you can create backgrounds, you can create languages. But the lighting is something that we need to do some extra work on. Just finally, we haven't changed the model at all here. There's no interaction with the model, the DWG file. So when you save this, all you're doing is saving the results of your work. We don't actually put anything in. So one of the requests we've got is, can we add lights to the scene? Well, we can't actually add lights to the scene. We only take what's been added in IntelliCAD or any of the other systems. But we're now looking at a way of actually handling that. That's something we're working on internally. Okay? Very short and sweet. But if there's any questions, particularly on words in the presentation maybe, or you want to see something here, then please feel free. You don't like asking questions, I noticed that this morning. It's all completely clear. How many of you have used have you had a go with Artisan inside IntelliCAD at all? Anyone? Obviously not Project CAD. A few people had a go. Success? Some success. Right?
What about environmental factors like fog?
Yeah, we haven't got any schemes with fog. We use the Lightworks rendering engine, which some of you may know. It's a system, it's an SDK, and we use that functionality. Inside that SDK, there is environmental effects. We just haven't exposed some of them in here. There's a whole bunch of things that we haven't exposed, which we will do, but it's just deciding which to do, really. Interestingly enough, no one has ever asked for fog, but I can understand, from an architectural background, why people would want to see different effects.
For us, it'd be more for forensic applications, being able to replicate what happened at the scene.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
Nighttime, if you got lights on a lamp standard shining down on the road.
Yeah, we've got lights in here. The intensities are wrong in this particular model, so I can't actually show them, but there was some images that went through. We're making the lights work now. What we've done with another customer, BricsCAD in this case, is we actually created a whole set of blocks, which the blocks are angle poise lights and uplighters and downlighters and so on. You can place those in your model.
So as long as the lighting sources are in the CAD model?
In the CAD model, they will do the job. Yes, they will do the job. It's not easy. It's something which we're kind of working on at the moment, the best way to interact with this, because placing a light source in a model and then seeing the effect in the rendering, there's obviously a lag there. So we're just trying to work out a way of kind of controlling that a bit more.
I just want to comment that we also have the ability in IntelliCAD to also put lights within the model that will translate over to Artisan as well.
Yeah, sure, yes.
So we have those working now. But I have questions about the shadows. And, I don't know if you saw the demo earlier. I know you were kind of in that. Did you see the BIM demonstration where we can insert Revit models and IFC models down?
I did see that, yes, in the Revit model.
Okay. Well, and we can also take those models right up and down to Artisan. So
Absolutely, yes.
which I think is a really powerful feature. But the one thing I'd like to see, like, let's say you take that model, the Revit model, right over into Artisan, and then you have this ability to quickly add all these materials and everything. I think the only thing that I would like to do that's missing for me are shadow specs. So I'd like to be able to position the sun
Yes.
at the location.
Yes. Well, this dialog that comes up, and the functionality is inside the Lightworks SDK. So this box that comes up very quickly is simply the sun height, the sun rotation, and I can just drag this around. What I'm actually doing is just affecting the position of the sun in the sky, which I can affect by typing the time of day, the longitude and latitude in as well. I just haven't got the dialog exposed at the moment.
We could do the interface now on the IntelliCAD side and pass that into the API then, is that correct?
Absolutely. I'm really interested. I mean, one of the things you showed in one of the earlier presentations was the camera. I think it was in the IntelliCAD 9 presentation where you can store camera views. Now obviously, we can take those also. Everything here is an XML file. So if you've created the cameras, we can take the camera views straight in.
Where we have all of the, when we have the dialog, it has all the sun location information by city.
Yes, yeah.
Time of day,
Sure, yeah.
year, all of that. We can just plug right into this and then just pass that. If we know how to pass that data to the API, then that would be great. I would be happy.
Absolutely, yeah, that can be done.
And then, do you guys do any kind of like a shadow spec, something to say, here's the start time, end time, and here's what the shadow looks like during
We don't do that, no, because we haven't put the time of day interface in yet. But the whole animation project, if you like, is to look at things like that, both animation of the building, and I think we have a very simple, let me just show you if I put a simple background on here just to kind of, we have a rotation. It's nothing, but it rotates. So we have the ability to produce OpenGL frames. And what we're doing now is just having a link between the snapshots, so they're the key frames. So you can say, this is one view, this is another view, just show me what it looks like to walk between the two. Or, this is one view with the lighting in a certain place, this is one view with the lighting in another, show me what it's like with the shadow moving between the two.
Now, this is an actual rendering, not OpenGL, right? Because I see the sun shadow.
This is OpenGL, yeah.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, yeah. This is OpenGL. We use, we've got a thing called ambient occlusion showing those little shadows there. We've got shadows. It depends if the card's good enough to do it, and it's not a massively complex card in here, but the shadow movement in here is all OpenGL. That's OpenGL doing that. And we do actually have an interface. I mean, I know some people sell a machine which may not be able to do all of this. I think in the edit preferences, we can say, okay, the real time, at the moment, oh, I've got it on 4, it's not even as good as it can be. So we can change the quality of the OpenGL rendering according to the card that's there. It has a go at doing it itself, but I must say it doesn't always get it right. It thinks the card's a little bit more capable than it is. But if the card's not capable of doing shadowing, it won't do it. So this is all Lightworks standard rendering doing this. And the nice thing is that you get a kind of you get a view of the material in OpenGL and a view of the material in rendering. Lightworks is capable of doing that.
I found for all the work that I was doing that the OpenGL image was fine for me.
Well, I think it's interesting. I demonstrated to some people in Germany, and the guy said, "Can we just show the sales guys something?" We were doing something with another CAD system, and they came in, and I did this sort of demonstration with something similar, and then they were like eager to go. Of course, they said, "Okay, we've seen it. That's absolutely superb. We can sell that." I said, "I haven't actually shown you the rendering yet." And they said, "Well, oh, is there something else?" So I showed them the rendering, and of course the rendering takes, a minute, 30 seconds, and they got bored by it. They said, "Oh no, we want this. This is the thing we want to show people. We don't want to show them any renderings." Okay, fine. Because the OpenGL rendering is very good. There's no doubt about it. It's.
I think it's a brilliant interface. I like it. It's a drag and drop. I think you guys have done a really nice job with the materials. Also, the standard lighting formats that you have are really particularly nice for.
Yeah, they're crafted.
Parts.
Yeah.
I really like some of the lighting schemes that you have in there. And impressive with like the little desktops where you can put like a part on the desktop.
Yes.
Brilliant. Really, it's you guys have done a nice job with it.
Well, I think it's I'll show you one other model. I think I've got 5 more minutes, haven't I? Let's just show you. Let's come out of there and say open another model, which is a little coffee machine. And I think this is a model that, as you can see, I'm struggling to even open a model here, but I'll get to it. I think this is one of the sample models in the ProCAD system. So this is like the user gets this to play with, so they can practice some rendering. So let's go into ARTISAN 3D Tools. Oh, So this is a coffee machine. You can see, you may have noticed as I went through the background, you've got a whole lot of tables. Well, what's the table thing about? I'm doing buildings. Well, some people aren't, and they just wanted. Some people asked us, they said, "Can you just give us a range of bench tops of different angles so we can just produce this in situ?" So here it comes. Oh, I've actually got a couple of loaded in here. So I've done some work with this I think I was just preparing something. So I've got a couple of snapshots already created, but you'll see them. So let's just move this thing around a little. Let's put some materials on it. Let's just load one, which I've done previously. So I'm just loading the snapshot. I'm now showing my customer what this will look like And I can move this around. I've got a table in the background. It's not detecting that the table's there. It's just I'm getting it into the right sort of place by eye. Although I can, if I render that, you'll see it looks pretty much like a coffee machine. And I can change the color and show all sorts of things. It's doing what we call a progressive render. It's kind of coming down the screen, getting more and more resolved each time. So you can decide, you can say, okay, this isn't the view I wanted. You know, I want it kind of like that. That's a bit more like it. And produce the render that way. Okay, so we have a range of these tops. I think they're called in the table archive, which we gave to someone. Backgrounds. Which seems like, you know, a mad archive to have, but it's just a range of different tables. It's so here it is on that table, and here it is on that table. Oh, they're not there. Okay, so they're just different tabletops that you can put the thing on. So, you know, people ask for all sorts of things. It's interesting how many customers say, can we have a range of courtyards in hotels, please, in Prague? I say, well, no, we can't create those. We can't be traveling around the world creating these. It's just a JPEG of an image list. In fact, this one is actually a rendered image of a kitchen. It's kind of a, you know, some of them we render, but you know, that you can just simply create them yourselves. And you can see a couple of buttons on the bottom of here. On one of them, doesn't matter which, where you can actually package these up. You can say, right, here's a whole load of them. There's 10. I want to create a little archive and send it to Jeff in some other city. He loads it as an archive, and he's instantly got all those materials or backgrounds to play with. That's the way we see it going. And we'd love to see a community of people using this, creating archives for different people, you know. But we've now got, as you saw, 10 or so systems. You know, there's lots of users using this, creating archives and just for themselves, and maybe they could put them into a pot and share them. Okay? So if anybody wants to see, if you can't quite see this, I noticed I was sitting at the back, and with my eyes, I was struggling to see, I must say. If you want to come and see, then I'm here for a day and a half, so you can come and have a look, and we'll try it out on one of your models, maybe. So. Okay, thank you very much.